Yeah, good afternoon. Today we'll discuss about indirect retainers. Okay. Uh, so, according to William E., he said that indirect retention is required on all danger bases. That is, the displacement danger bases. So retained by class. Okay. So when you will require a class partial dangers, that is a restriction danger basis in the situation of class 1 and class 2. Can it is class 1 and class 2 cases. Okay. So in that cases, we need indirect retention. Okay. So I will tell about brief introduction about the fulcrum lines and the levers. So actually, I have told about the lever class levers. Okay. So the class one lever, what is class one lever, what is class two lever? The previous class that is about RPD designing, principles and RPD designing. In that class, I have discussed about all the levers and what are the possible stress factors affect on the removal partial ranges. Okay. So in the brief, I will tell about this concept. Okay. So what is fulcrum line? Fulcrum line is nothing but an imaginary line. Okay. So it is a theoretical line or an imaginary line passing through the points around the which a lever functions and at right angles to its path of movements. So it's nothing but a line drawing passing through the terminal abutments. This line passes through the occlusal rests of the terminal abutments of a removable partial nature. Okay. So, so what are the terminal abutments means? What are the distalmost abutments adjacent to the edentulous space? So, consider in the case of a class 1 or a class 2. Okay, so that is unilateral edentulous or the bilateral posterior edentulous space. So, adjacent to that edentulous space, the line passing through the terminal tooth passing through the occlusal rest is called the fulcrum line. Okay. So, what are the stresses affected on the partial dentures? So, what are the stresses? So, there are three types of stresses mainly affect the removable partial denture. So, first one is the vertical forces, vertical stresses. Second one is the horizontal stresses. Third one is the torsional stresses. These three stresses affect on the removable partial denture. Okay, which will affect the stability of the partial denture. So in the vertical, there are two. One is the displacing stresses, and second one is the dislodging stresses. Okay. So what are the displacing stresses? Okay, the forces acting along the suppose consider this is a mandibular partial denture. So the forces acting along the downward. Okay, downward that is towards the tissue. So along the long axis of the tooth. This is the natural tooth. Am I audible to you?
Yes, sir.
My screen is visible? PowerPoint is visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, so the displacing stresses are nothing but downward stresses along the long axis of the tooth. Okay, so these are the along the long axis of the tooth, and these are the towards the tissue. Okay, and the relatively vertical stresses on the ridge of the mucosa. So these stresses affect the ridge